All right, now we're going to take apart my old prototype Goosky S2 with this new one that we've already put together. So we're going to take it apart in the main areas just so that we could pop this off and take the tail motor cabling out of the tail boom, and we'll pop it on the new frame. So the first thing I'll start with is this front bracket, because I forgot to print this one. What's nice about this front bracket, it is able to easily hold the XT30 connector and prevents the battery from flying out. Usually it's able to sit in without snug in the frame without a problem, but I definitely use this technique when it comes to just making sure that the battery doesn't fly out. Alright, so we'll just, you know what, we might as well just pop this in here really quick. Yeah, let's do that. Then we'll quickly just take apart the other one. It's kind of embarrassing that I forgot to 3D print the front bracket. I don't know how I forgot about that. I even made a thumbnail on, if you could tell, on the free parts announcement that I had with this angled on my printer. Without even knowing about it, I had this part completely left out. So this part is still available on Printables and Thingiverse, so no worries there. It is definitely available. So gotta just align the holes. And assemble this. Which is why it's nice to have these specific screws as long as they are for this reason. Oh. Originally I was using a Phillips screwdriver that actually ended up stripping out the old screws on my original helicopter that I had. Well, the original hardware, I should say. It's pretty bad, so kind of happy I ended up buying these screws and the proper Phillips driver to put the screws into, or put the, well, you know what I mean. All right. There. Now it's complete. All right. Back to this. So, believe it or not, I should probably first pop off these connectors. Should have grabbed a flathead, but frustrating part about replacing parts on a Goosky is that these connectors have to come out, especially the tail boom. The motor cables are here and the main motor cables are here, and every time you break apart you have to completely take apart this flight controller. What I do to remember is I labeled my cables from left to right, 1, 2, 3, and then I did the same thing here, except I used dots. 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure if you guys could see that, but that's how I remember which cables go where. Let's finish. Oh, and same thing with these cables. If you don't want to keep up with them, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. So I have a dot here, 2 dots here, and 3 dots there. if you are curious on how I made sure that my connectors were in the right locations. I'm gonna get made fun of for not using a flat head. So let me just quickly grab a flat head. There we go. Would make my life so much easier. There we go. I'll just easily pop those out. There we go. All right, so I just moved those off to the side. I leave this one in because it's just the Bluetooth to the app. And since I don't have a specific driver in the set that I originally told you guys to buy, this Strabito one, it will not fit through these small holes at all. So I have a old screwdriver just laying around, one of these thin ones. They definitely help get into the flight controller. You don't have to worry about losing these too much. They will pretty much stay in. But you definitely got to make sure you are unscrewing these all the way. Which I'm not sure if I am there yet, but let's see where we're at. There we go. I'm just gonna pry that open gently. There we go. So I'm gonna cover these, and that's kind of what that looks like. All right, let's put that off to the side. Now we need to unscrew these terminals for the motor. Let's see, I believe these are, just gonna make sure, yep, 0. So I should be able to easily unscrew these. I feel bad working on this aircraft so many times because I don't know how many times I can tell you I've taken this apart and put it back together. Hopefully my equipment does not wear out. All right. I'm trying not to lose these screws. They're quite tiny and they do have a washer in them. Oh, and I almost did just that. There we go. I'll put it in our tray. I'm telling you not to lose them, and I'm very close to losing them myself. All right, let's do this side. This is the tail motor. Now remember, make sure you label these. Or, if you don't feel like labeling them, actually, no, I don't really have good advice to not label them. You should label them. You can take photos of where each cable goes, but then again, you have one white and then 2 black. If the wire colors were different, or you could just heat shrink different. If you ever take this apart, just put different color heat shrink on your cables if you want to do that. There we go. Oh. Actually, the washer's kind of stuck on this. There we go. All right, that is kind of the most important part. What I might end up doing actually is I might use the same flight controller. I believe this is the most updated one, but the reason I might use this flight controller tray is just because It's it has 3M on the bottom, and I've already taken it apart and reused it. But let me see. I remember making sure that the through holes were smaller. So let's look at that really quick. Yeah, these are a decent size. I'll just pop that on there like that. All right, we'll just leave that out. And then, all right. So the motor mount needs to go. There we go. Yeah, so these red frames, anything that's red on this helicopter, part-wise, is all from PLA. When I first started this project, I was using a Ender 3 Pro, and I still have the Ender 3 Pro, but I ended up buying a Sidewinder X2, and that printer just prints much better. Not that your Ender cannot handle this, but I've definitely had some struggles as far as printing the proper, or the parts properly. Either the slicer was not happy, or I wasn't too sure, but when I first started, I just couldn't print a part the right way. All right, we'll take this one off too. See, if you didn't want to replace, see, this is a self-tapping screw, so if you didn't want to replace that, you could reuse those, but I ended up replacing mine. That way I could have all my parts. All right, let's see, we're almost there. I love the design of this Goosky S2, but I absolutely dislike taking it apart. Mostly because of the motor wires. There's no easy way of taking them apart. Oh, whoops. Make sure each screw is going where it's supposed to. There we go. But that's okay. One thing I was actually curious on doing, or thinking about doing, is I was going to cut these motor cables, or motor wires, and put bullet connectors on them. Let's see. Oh, that's where I put that. Okay. Yeah, so cutting these and maybe putting EC2 bullet connectors on here so I could just plug and unplug them. I haven't got to that point, but if that's something you want to test out, or if anybody has done that, please let me know in the comments below, or send me some photos, because if that does work very easily, I would love to do that. All right. That is good. So I might have to cut off this zip tie here, because that's where this cable is, and it runs through the tail boom. Okay. It's my satellite cable. Yeah. There is. I've also used quite a bit of zip ties to make this happen. There we go. But I brought some extras. All right. Now that the motor cable There we go. Now I could easily pop this out. Another reason I didn't design the other side of the frames the way the original ones is because you always had to feed those through, and that way that also made it a hassle because you also had to unscrew all the frames if you wanted to leave the motor in. But either way, that is all right. Now what I could do is I'll just loosen these a little bit. And then I have to take off the set screw. Pop that out. I'll just leave my satellite cable in there for the time being. Let's pop this off. Originally I had a slight difficult time with putting these cables through because of that bar I put in, but with a little bit of finagling you'll be able to get it in through the tube. These screws that go into the motor are definitely going to be the ones you will be using. Clearly you can't use self-tapping screws into metal. Alright, so we have those three. We'll definitely be using that. Alright, let's see if you guys can see it. See? Just pull right out. Actually, now that I think about it, goodness. Huh. Look at that, I created a problem I didn't think I was going to have. Talk about engineering, huh? All that. There. Try to come up with something. Just push it back through the tube. Oh, that's why. I usually try to not have that. That way these could be, you know, separated easily. All right, let's gently. Nope, that's. Doesn't look like I might not be able to get these out. That's a little embarrassing. Alright, I'm back. So I pretty much cut this sleeving and it still is stuck in here. But now that I think about it, the only time you truly had to replace a tail boom is if you crash and destroy it. So I'm going to take this apart with you guys in front of you and dismantle this tail boom the way I would if I had to replace it. So let's do that. All right, so clearly, all right, these screws will be replaced. All right, so if you could tell, oh, I was just about to take that apart, but it somehow managed to slip right through. I was not expecting that. So what I was going to do with this cable inside is, oops, I was going to take wire cutters, something like this, and just start cutting away at the wall of the tail boom. And yeah, cut a big hole here and then have it easily come out, and then you could print out a new one. I mean, like I said, these parts don't cost too much. It just costs you time to print. But besides that, that's what I would have done. I was not expecting that to come right out, but it did. But I'm going to put that off to the side. Now we have kind of Now we have the main components to replace with this helicopter. One last thing I did forget to do is take apart this motor mount. You will also be using these screws as well. There we go. Now we have all the parts taken off. Now that we have the helicopter torn apart with all its main components, we can now put it into the PETG airframe. So let's quickly start off with the motor. Just gotta feed those through. Takes a little bit to do. I don't remember how I did this last time, but I think I did it one by one. There we go. And then just kind of slowly push it, and then it'll just slide right through. Oh, there's hardware going everywhere, but yeah, there we go. And then we can install the tail motor, and then you have the tail motor screws off to the side here. So let's install those. So I kind of push on the part a little bit and put some pressure into the part, and then aligning the tail motor. That should be set. There's one, and then you put the rest of them in. So not too bad. You don't want to flex the part too much, so you want to make sure you have support while you're screwing this in. There we go. One more. And what's nice is if you were to crash and you just had an airframe sitting like this ready to go, just take this one apart and replace it with new ones, and that way you always have spares. You could print a bunch of these chassis out, take it to the field, and make sure you have the right equipment to take it apart, and then you could always be at the field flying non-stop. All right, so this goes in like this. There we go. Motor sits in like that. Tail motor screw should probably go through or up above. Would be smart of me just to take this apart, but I have already taken this apart and don't really want to take this back out. So that's essentially what it would look like. And then you'd have your flight controller tray. let's put the motor in. Just make things easy. Just making sure everything's aligned. The hole is currently not aligned, but I'll get there. More so trying to just get through the plastic at this point. You know what? Let me take this out really quick. And just thread these in. So if you haven't used the part, if you're using the part for the first time, you really have to thread these in nicely, otherwise they won't go through. Another reason why I actually made the through holes a little bit tighter toleranced, since the machine screws are more so, they're built to go into metal. So since we're going through plastic, and for them to seat nicely through the plastic, the best way to do that is just to have a tighter tolerance in your plastic holes. That way, now just doing this third one, once this one is through, perfect. So we have all three of them, and now all we have to do is mount the motor, align it, and then we should be set. So let's try this again. What's nice is, since this is all plastic, it's so flexible. Otherwise, you couldn't really do something like this with a carbon fiber frame. Trying to take shortcuts here. It doesn't always result in the best way, but trying to make this a simple short video as best as I can. So all right, now we know where the motor is. We'd start threading the motor on. I don't know why this is being so difficult. Shouldn't be that bad. Okay, well, let's just keep moving on. Just pushing down on the motor so that it easily fits in. Once it stops, I try not to thread the screws into the motor too much more. Now that that's aligned, oh, now I see what the problem is. Just had to align this nicely. Okay. I'm definitely making this a lot more complicated than it should be. That is for sure. Okay. All right. Now to remember which screws go where. All right. I'll take these 1.5s and thread them through. And the reason I'm doing this so aggressively is because I have to pierce through that frame first before it actually goes into the aluminum, and once it's going through the aluminum, it makes it very easy. There we go. Just making sure everything's aligned up properly. There we go. Let's go do the other side. Shouldn't take too long. Oh, I lost the screw. All right, now for this side. Usually when you have all the pieces together, it's a lot easier to assemble, but I was definitely making this a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. I usually tend to build the aircraft on top of the bearing blocks and everything, but since I'm trying to cut this short, just there we go. Now we got one more. One more screw. Fit in like a charm. Perfect. So now all we need to do, I believe these were supposed to go over the frame, which I did not do. So I quickly fixed the orientation of these cables before they were running through this side, but you want them running between the battery tray and the motor mount. So that's what they're gonna look like. That's what they should be. That's what they should look like. So let's move forward with assembling this. I'm gonna put this back because I cut it out when I thought this wasn't going to be able to fit through the tail boom. So just a more something to protect it while I'm zip tying the cable. But also I realized that I was missing a screw, so I also added a screw to one of the bearing blocks here. All right. This is where it gets a little tricky because you got all these small screws that can fall. And you want to make sure that the washer is on each screw as well. And I'm using a pH0 Phillips to put these screws back on. Now remember, as I mentioned before, so it's 1, 2, 3, and then from left to right, looking on this side, 1, 2, 3, and then we have the dots that I've added on, and then same thing here, left to right, 1, 2, 3. So let's put these cables on. Gotta first get your screws pretty tiny. I should probably have a mat so it dampens the fall, but maybe next time I'll better prepare myself. So let's put that off to the side, figure out which one I'm going to be using here. That's a 1. Since these were bigger cables, I actually wrote down 1, 2, 3. So this one, start off with this one. They don't really sit very easily either. So you almost want to hold it. It takes me a few tries to get this. Oh, look at that. Perfect. So there's 1. This one is labeled 2. So this one will be next. Sometimes I put them through. It doesn't always work out for the best, but we'll see how this works out. Oh, I guess that works out too. Sometimes the Phillips head being magnetic helps, but not all the time. All right, 1 more on this side. So another reason why I was thinking of truly just cutting these cables and just cutting these cables and putting bullet connectors off to the side here. Oh, here are my tweezers. There we go. It's never a fun process. Oh, there we go. So those are the main motor wires. Another reason, as I mentioned before, why I didn't put a hole here for the cables to run through. These cables are quite rigid enough, or they won't be moving too much, but that'll decrease the hassle of also feeding them through the frame, which is why I didn't really add that feature in. And since they're not carbon fiber, you don't have to really worry about the cables rubbing onto the plastic edge here. Usually that's more so to help the cables, or preventing the cables to cut on the frame. But plastic, not so much. But if you want to take precautions, maybe file down the edge of the plastic and you should be fine. If you're not flying too hard, it shouldn't really matter too much. All right, so this time it's 1, 2, 3 from the back to the front. Oh. See, look at that. Being magnetic. Perfect. All right. I'm actually curious, before I put this through, I usually wanna, okay, I think they were zip tied like that. I don't think they were going through the, yeah, I believe the cable went underneath the servo and then into the flight controller. So let's do that. Gotta figure out which cable I'll be using. I believe the white one. I know it's taking me a bit. I just want to make sure because it would be so this is 3. That's 2. All right. Perfect. Better to triple check to not, that way you don't have to put these cables in multiple times. Oh. Oh. There we go. Oh. You want to make sure they easily thread in because you don't want to cross thread these. That would be bad. I try not to over tighten them, but tighten them enough where there was one time where I actually put my prototype frames together, these, with this flight controller, and I did not tighten them enough, and the main motor, the cables were moving back and forth, so make sure that these screws are just tight enough. You don't want to over tighten them, but definitely want, oh boy, I'm gonna pause the video. I just lost a washer, so give me a second. And just like that, I was able to find it. Took me at least a good 5-10 minutes, but got it back. That would not be good. I believe these washers are specifically made for so that the screw has some sort of pressure to make sure it doesn't unscrew itself. All right, now I'm back to trying to figure out which cable goes where. All right, so that's 3. Perfect. So this one is 2. Perfect. Got one more to go. I actually took this washer and put it on the ground just to see what it would look like. So I would have some sort of reference when I was trying to look for it on the ground, but ended up helping me out just a tad bit. Yeah, because I don't know if they actually sell replacement or spare screws and washers for this flight controller. They're not expecting you to, oh, they're not really expecting you to take this apart as much as I have been. It's more of a take out of the box and fly it as much as you can, which it has been phenomenal for that purpose. All right, perfect. Now I'm just gonna go through each screw and make sure they're nicely out. That's good. Oh, totally moved the camera there. Come on. There we go. All right, perfect. That should be good. All right, now let's put this flight controller on. So I'm gonna see if I can flip these over without losing the screws. So you have these pins here and here, and you wanna mate them with these connectors, I believe. Do this sideways so I can kind of have an idea of, make sure I'm getting each connector. And while you're also doing this at the same time, which I'm probably gonna have to pull this out already. Oh. This does pop up. I believe it has 3M tape on the bottom, but this piece right here that sits, it's like a grommet in a way. And you want that to seat into the bottom side. There we go, just like that, before putting in the flight controller. That's one thing I do tend to forget a lot, so make sure that's seated properly, and it should be very easy to just place this flight controller right on top. Try this again. Not having a lot of luck here. There we go. Perfect. Now you could tell that grommet is seated nicely between both of the cases. Now I want to bring back your really thin screwdriver to tighten this down. I'm not sure if I'm using the right Phillips head for these screws, so I'm trying to gently tighten them. I don't really have a exact Phillips head to be able to go through here, so just using with what I got. All right, sometimes you could tell that even though you've tightened it, there's still a minor gap. I don't know if you guys could see that, so you want to push that in a little bit more. Let's see this side. No gap here. That's good. Yeah. So maybe I have to tighten up a little bit more on this corner. And just double check all. Okay, perfect. We're almost done here. Now, the last few pieces you have are these connectors. So here's one. I'll just push that one in. Never easy. Feels so bad because there's so much strain on these cables here that go straight across. Try to make sure you can loosen them up. There we go. Want to make sure you're not pinching any of the cables. Perfect. One more. Until I have 3 dots on here. Perfect. So that's pretty much it. I don't know if you guys really want to have me sit through putting the rest of the cabling together, but the last cable, I pretty much have my satellite antenna that sits right here, and then as you can tell, I wire it and zip tie it here, up and over, in between that area, and then it passes through, and that either passes through here or between, I'm pretty sure I pass it through right below here, and then up and over, and then you want to plug it into where it says DSMX. And then after everything's plugged in, I usually just do my best to zip tie everything. It can be a little bit of a hassle, but that's pretty much the entirety of it is what you guys just saw. So that's pretty much it. If you guys do have any questions as far as assembly goes, or anything that involves printing these parts, and anything else that you might have seen within these few videos, just post a comment below, let me know. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this as much as I have been. It's been quite a journey. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like if you like the video, if you do like the content. So I'll catch you guys in the next one.